So people are pretty frustrating. There's a lot of folks that absolutely hate millennials. They hate millennials, and then these are the 40-something-year-olds, okay? So I knew a guy, and he talked about caring about the poverty, caring about homeless, but he doesn't think about it like I do. When I think about the poor, that's a crisis. That is a forest fire that needs to be stopped right now. And if you have if you don't give a shit, if you don't have a plan, you're telling me that, the problems are just going to solve themselves? So when folks, that guy, he talked, some bullshit, and I thought he was a good guy, and then, talking to him, he didn't give a shit, he didn't care about nothing, but he did hate the millennials. He hated the millennials. So he's in his 40s. He's going to hate a generation that's 5 years younger than him? What is it, public education? Is that what it is? Because we were watching Power Rangers instead of He-Man? I mean, my God, the Gen Xers, what'd they do? Let O.J. Simpson go free? Oh, yeah, thanks a lot, Gen Xers. A continuation of Reagan's policies with the Clintons? Oh, thanks a lot. Oh, you weren't old enough to vote for the Clintons? You still supporting Hillary Clinton? You Hillary Clinton assholes? So when he said that he hated millennials, that I believed. That I believed. We going to get a homeless shelter built? Nah. Anything with the poverty? No. But he hated the millennials. He's been scapegoating millennials. These 40-something-year-olds have been talking to the 50s and the 60-year-old folks, and anytime they're like, oh, the millennials, and then they're like, well, yeah, the damn millennials. The damn millennials. My God, we got the internet, we got iPhones, we got iPods, we got electric cars. We're the brand new generation. And then the same person says, well, I'm glad my kid isn't a millennial. They're born in our generation. If you didn't like the next generation, the youth of the next generation, what's the likelihood that, the next generation, they're not going to have iPhones, they're not going to have electric cars? What's going to be the difference? What's going to be the change? You're still going to be an old asshole hating on the youth. So that's the only thing I believe that he believes. Are you going to give a shit about the poor? Are you going to do anything about the war? Are you going to do anything about the corruption? You going to do anything about anything? Nah, but you'll be a dick to, millennials. You're going to scapegoat an entire generation. So if you're just talking about Generation Y, so anybody born from 1982 to 1992, those are the people that are the problem. They're the problem, right? Just that decade, just those 10 years. Oh, yeah. Nah, I don't, hate the Gen Xers. I don't hate anybody. I'm very disappointed with the older generation. First of all, you're just going around hating on, the younger generation just because you're like, oh, those damn whippersnappers. Oh, no, I'm going to keep this bull. So you're just hating on the younger generation just because. Why? Because we're younger than you? I mean, I'm 37, and I guess it makes me feel better that these Gen Xers make me feel young. And, somebody else said something else. So I'm going to get into this right now. I want to talk about the shooting, okay? So there was another shooting that just happened, a school shooting. They do happen way too frequently, and it's disgusting. What the Democrats jump into immediately, they jump into, gun control automatically. Yeah, pass a bunch of laws and then just what? Let the police get the guns? Well, and then they don't say shit about the military. They don't say shit about the child abuse. They don't say shit about the poverty or the dog-eat-dog capitalist society or the totalitarian school systems which don't teach civics, has no freedom, has no democracy. Oh, they don't talk about any of those issues. Let's give the corrupt judicial system all the power to, if the judicial system's corrupt, so that means a victim could be told that they're the perpetrator, and then they have no defense whatsoever. So automatically, Democrats, gun control. That's the only solution, huh? You know what the solution is? Bake those kids a blueberry pie. There was a guy, and it was awesome. He was totally honest, and he had said that he was frustrated. He was getting bullied, and he wasn't getting no love, and he was just getting hate, and he just kept on getting pissed off. And then eventually, one of his classmates had a blueberry pie party, went to his house, baked him a blueberry pie. And he says that was the, difference, the entire world of difference there. So, be nicer to each other. Care about one another. But you're in a totalitarian public schools, you gotta listen to the dictator, and they believe in the bell curve. They believe in divide and conquer, and so they want to, use their oppression, appeal to authority. Just listen to them just because they're bigger than you and you have to sit in that class. Just do it because you have to. So, you're ignoring all those issues as if none of those issues matter. That kid in Florida, he killed people, so therefore he deserves the death penalty, and liberals would be against that too, right? They'd be against that too. So anyways, I think that he deserves the death penalty. You kill somebody, you get killed. Now, let's look at the reasons for what happened. Why did he do the things that he did? His own little brother was making fun of him. He was getting bullied in school. People are saying, you didn't know him? What? He looked a little weird. He looked a little different. He tried to crack a joke and it, fell flat. And then you guys just, rolled your eyes and then pretend like he's the dumbest person in the world. His little brother said he, picked on him. His little brother picked on him. He had $1 million trust fund waiting for him. How come none of the teachers, none of his friends, none of his family told him, just be patient. You're going to get this $1 million. You can buy a house. You can invest in things. You got options. You have options. When people do these things, they don't care about their lives. They're suicidal, so they don't care about their lives. And they just had it. They only see one way out. They only see one option. So he's living in a household with this woman, and I don't know why he's staying with her, but he's staying with her, then eventually he gets kicked out, right? And so immediately after the shooting happened, this woman that he was staying with, she files to take some of that $1 million away from him. So she couldn't tell him that he could get his own money, to be patient, or to give him good advice. But the moment he messes up, these scavengers jump in and they take his wealth and they take everything that he had. What could we have done to prevent the Parkland shooting? What could we have done? You think passing a bunch of laws would have, stopped him from what? Finding access to something and hurting people? So, yeah, maybe. I'll listen to you all when you all start listening to me, okay? There's a shit ton of issues. There's a shit ton of problems in the United States of America, and you're going to sit there and just say this one solution is the solution we should go to? I'll tell you why I'm skeptical of it. I'll tell you two reasons why I'm skeptical of gun control. For one thing, how many freedoms do we have? Do you all read the Constitution? Do you know do you even know the Third Amendment? So we have, about 50 freedoms in the U.S. Constitution, and then our state constitutions give us another 50 freedoms or so. I think I've counted them up for Colorado and the United States, and that's about 73 freedoms we get. So we get about 73 freedoms total. So since we get 73 freedoms, and you're going to sit there and try to take my second freedom, the people that are against freedom of speech, you're against the very first freedom that we have, along with petition and religion and the press and the right to peacefully assemble. So it's actually the first five, right? So the Second Amendment would be the sixth freedom that we have. But you're going to go against the Second Amendment. What about the third? What about the fourth? What about the fifth? I think the 11th one, there's one of them that I think it's the 11th, is total bullshit. If you're one state, you can't sue another state. So that, what the hell is that about? That's just a... So anyways, you're going to sit there and rip up one freedom, and you are ripping up the freedoms. Don't sit there and lie to me. Don't lie to me. You got the Republicans that just sit there and say, oh, they need mental health services. But they don't finance mental health services. So they're just talking. They're just, spitting out a bunch of bullshit. Of course you're against the Second Amendment. I've heard it many times for people to sit there and say, oh, not really. I want a little bit here, a little bit there. In which way? So, okay, let's get background checks, right? Let's close the gun show loophole. Well, let's make sure there's no assault rifles. That shooting in Denver still happens. That shooting in Denver still happens because they had clean records. They came from good families in a suburb, and they didn't get it from a gun show, and it was, a handgun, so it's not an assault rifle. What are you all doing? What are you all doing? You're not even looking at the evidence. You're not even trying to be logical whatsoever about this thing. So the first thing is, you're against my second freedom. Are you even in favor of freedom? Do you even care about freedom? Do you care about the Constitution? Do you know how the constitutional government works? Because all the laws come from the Constitution. All of them. And the point of the Second Amendment is very clear. So if you're going to take away a foundational, fundamental freedom away from Americans, then you need to have a constitutional convention. You can't just write off an amendment. In order to get rid of the 19th Amendment, you had to have the 21st Amendment. So you had to pass another amendment to undo the amendment. So you're not just going to pass laws, you're going to have to undo the amendment or come, to the conclusion we need a constitutional convention. That's a good idea. There's an idea for you, gun control nuts. You gun control nuts. Get a constitutional convention. Then we could fix a lot of shit across the board. But as long as you're going to sit there and tell me you don't give a shit about poverty, you don't give a shit about the corruption in the judiciary, you don't give a shit about the 20 people we killed in Palestine, what's the difference? What's the difference? Murder is clearly wrong. It's clearly wrong, but I've heard people say that they're for gun control, but they're not for disarming the police. They're not for disarming the military. What? So that means that kid from the Parkland shooting, all he needed to do was join the military. Jeffrey Dahmer was in the military. And then he gets all the guns and weapons and ammunition that he wants. Unlimited weapons. There is no difference except for in Palestine there was way more people killed, 20 people killed, and then 2 of them were toddlers. So you're killing babies. These are teenagers. So, if we want to compare and contrast, murder is murder and it's all bullshit. But more people were killed over there, and 2 young little children who didn't even get to experience any life whatsoever. And yet nobody says shit about the Palestinians. What about the kids in Yemen? What about the kids in Somalia? What about this coup d'etat in Venezuela? What about the 40,000 people that the United States government killed in Venezuela with the sanctions? So you want to sit there and tell me what? You're logical and you care about all these issues? No, absolutely not. I don't believe you. I do not believe you. When you are, you're just a gut reaction, this horrible tragedy, happens, and I think we do have to have some threshold for, crazy shit happens, but it is happening periodically. It's happening over and over again. So let's have a conversation. Let's actually solve this thing. You going to go around baking blueberry pies for these kids that are being bullied? Are you going to stand up against child abuse? There's a lot of connections. You're going to tell me that the military-industrial complex, we have a violent society. I've talked to these mercenaries, and the mercenaries say they love every single war. It doesn't matter what war it is, they're going to go and do it. So we have this violent society where cops get away with murder, we're, killing all these people overseas, and it's totally fine and dandy, totally acceptable, all that's okay. You don't see a connection between having a violent society and violent children, and then go to child abuse. You don't see the connection between parents who are supposed to love their kids, hitting their kids. You don't see that connection at all. You don't even see it, do you? Right? What, you care about child abuse and not even about murders. No, I care about both. I care about both. So the parents are supposed to love them, and they're teaching them that violence is good, violence is right, violence is fine, might is right. You can solve your problems with violence. They get away with it all the time. And then when that kid goes out and acts violently, you're shocked. He was getting his butt kicked every day, going to school, getting bullied. What kind of life is that? What kind of life is that? So if you're not going to stand up against child abuse because corporal punishment is an assault, I believe in disciplining kids. Yeah, okay. Do you ever spank, the adults when they do something? James Holmes killed all those kids. Did you spank the adults for that? What about the police officers have immunity and they get away with a bunch of crimes. They don't even get charged. They don't even go through the criminal justice system. So how are you going to make the judges and prosecutors do what they're supposed to do? They need to have a moral compass. The rule of law covers everybody. The rule of law covers everybody. So since the rule of law covers everybody, what's good for the goose is good for the gander. If a citizen murders, rapes, uses violence, steals, burns down someone's house, is a pedophile, these are the biggest crimes out there. These are the biggest crimes. If a citizen does it, no questions asked. They get the hammer and they get, the rocket docket slaughterhouse fucks them over. You're guilty until proven innocent if you have an allegation and you're a citizen. But if the police officers do that, if they steal, rob, rape, if they murder, use violence, excessive violence, let a dog bite into somebody that wasn't even being violent whatsoever, if they are pedophiles, KPS, the cops in Kentucky, the state police in Kentucky, they had problems with that. And then you also have arson. So you're going to sit there and tell me that the police can get away with, this murder. Police get away with murder, literally. They literally get away with murder. But you're not going to disarm the police. You're not going to fix that problem. You're going to sit there and allow the corrupt police to go ahead and take the guns away from the victims, defend the perpetrators, and then tell the victim that they can never have any kind of defense. They can never defend themselves ever. So the first reason why is because we got 73 freedoms. You're going to destroy one of my freedoms. Do you even know the other freedoms? You don't even know the other freedoms, and yes, you're just going along with what? Because Obama said it? Because Rachel Maddow said it? When y'all can get outraged about the poverty and about the homeless and about the police brutality and the lack of access for average citizens in the judiciary, if you can get mad about the corruption, if you can get mad about, there's a slew of problems. Dog-eat-dog society, so you're getting beat up at home, you're getting bullied at school, and then you go to work being yelled at by your boss. Dog-eat-dog, nobody gives a damn. Nobody cares. There's a guy that was shot and killed in Romeo. Did we catch the killer? Nobody knows. Nobody said anything about it. Who's the guy that got killed? People don't even know his name. The guy's dead and gone, and so that's it, right? C'est la vie. Somebody, adult male got murdered, and we're just going to go ahead and just shrug our shoulders and pretend like that doesn't mean nothing? And it's not just males, right? Samantha Ramsey, yeah, she got a $3.5 million. Her mom did, but she's dead. She's dead. So the first reason is because we got 73 freedoms. You're going to tear up one of them. Are you going to tear up the rest? And if we want a constitutional convention, let's do this. Let's do this. You really want to fix the gun problem? Then let's change the Constitution. Let's have a clean slate. Start from new. Get our democracy. How about that? We don't have a fair democracy. They go ahead and laugh and, ostracize the libertarians and the Greens. That's not a fair democracy. That's not a fair democracy. So we can actually get a fair democracy. We can get, more pure, more direct democracy. We can do so many things if we had a constitutional convention. Or pass an amendment, right? Pass an amendment that voids the Second Amendment. So those are the two options that I see if you really are being serious about this. But if you just want to be a dickhead to your neighbor because they think differently than you, seems like you guys are just beating your heads up against the wall. And you're just going to keep beating your heads up against the wall and just keep on being mad about it. And people say, oh, we should, not fund the politicians. Yeah, go ahead. Start following the politicians and then tell people not to fund them. So there's many ways that you could go about doing this, but just shitting on your neighbor because they think differently than you. The other reason, the other incredible, awesome reason, and this comes from my cousin. So, I love my cousin dearly, and my cousin, he's had a lot, he had a lot of bad things that had happened to him. He got raped. He had, been robbed, a home invasion. He'd nearly been murdered. He nearly got killed. And, violence had happened to him. So he had a lot of bad things happen to him. He lives out in a rural area. He lives out in the country. And according to him, and it makes sense if you just think about it really, because you're out in the country, you're 30 minutes away, the police aren't going to get there in time. So an intruder could come into your house, shoot you, take everything in your house, and then take off, and then who's going to know what the hell happened? So he says that he got himself a pistol, and he felt that it actually protected him. Finally, he could actually have a piece of the American dream. Now he could defend himself. Now he could fight for his castle. Now he could fight for his own life. So Mao Zedong said that power comes out of a barrel of a gun. And so if you're just going to sit there and say that poor, powerless people that aren't protected by the police should just be victims to the criminals, you live in a nice area. You live in a good area where you feel as though you can walk around, shit won't happen to you, and if it did, then justice would be enforced. Congratulations, middle-class America. You got a nice little thing going on for you. But out in the country, and I would think in the ghetto and some other, dangerous areas, that's not the case. That's not the case. You know, out in rural areas, you have a lot of small towns. They don't have any police at all. There's a county police, but they don't have any police at all. How do they get along? They don't even have a police force. How can they make sure that they're safe and how they're okay? So there's a ton of towns that have zero police whatsoever, and if you have no police, you have to protect yourself. You got to be able to defend yourself. So you're going to be against an average citizen from having, you know, a gun, but you're going to allow so many other worse people out here to have guns. And maybe, you know, the judicial system works. Like I said, some of you all seem to think that the society is operating for you, and you're totally fine. So, good for you. Good for you. You have a nice little comfortable, secure spot. Good for you. Are you going to make sure that everybody gets a nice, comfortable, secure spot? No. What you're going to do is you're going to take the good people in the ghetto who's got, you know, who needs to have a gun to defend themselves. You're going to take that gun away from them, and they're not going to be able to defend themselves. What, the criminals are going to give it up? No, they're not. So the idea that we're going to go ahead and we're going to punish the entire, you know, population for something that one or two people did. And I'll repeat it again. Those two kids, there's an 18-year-old and a 15-year-old, a boy and a girl, one that was transitioning, which is kind of crazy. We're going to respect, you know, that. We got to respect that, but then we're going to ignore it. They murdered people, so we don't have to respect any of that. They came out of a good family. They had clean records. They didn't get a gun at a gun show loophole, or at a gun show, so the gun show loophole doesn't matter. The background check wouldn't have mattered. It seems like you're not even using logic or evidence. You're just kind of making shit up off the top of your head. Well, if we just did this and did that, it would work. Everything would be better. No, it wouldn't. Pass your background check. That shooting in Denver still happens. Go ahead and, you know, pass the gun show loophole. That shooting in Denver still happens. Go ahead and ban, you know, all the assault rifles in the world. That shooting in Denver still happens. So why don't you actually use the evidence? The way I understand how the world works is you build up, you know, small cases, and then you come to a conclusion. But this is a conclusion that's in need of evidence. So those are my two biggest reasons. My two biggest reasons, because there's people that are not being protected by, you know, society, and they need to defend themselves, especially people out in rural areas where the police, you know, takes 30 minutes to get to them, or there's no police at all. They have a right to defend themselves. They have a right to defend themselves. Do they need bazookas and tanks? All those things are illegal already. And so it's, you know, the assault rifles, right? And so, you know, okay, you know, if you started caring about all these other issues, then I would listen. But you're not talking about any of those issues. You're not talking about poverty or capitalism. You're not talking about homelessness. You're not talking about the damn corruption. You're not talking about any of that. You're trying to take power away from the people. And the reason for the Second Amendment is to stop tyranny. To stop tyranny. That's the point. How many of y'all, God, we are so far removed from being Americans. The British tried to take the guns away, and the Americans had guns. And so the Americans won, and now we're Americans. We wouldn't be Americans without guns. I'm going to, you know, go back to some of these other issues. You know, poverty, that could be a contributing factor, bullying, and, you know, a lot of this could be contributing factors. It doesn't directly translate into people acting crazy, but ultimately, you know, if a person is just being abused over and over again, but the child abuse, okay, so child abuse. If I would say, people seem so stupid when it comes to children. When it comes to adults, we're not even going to lay a finger on the adults. We might fine them, we might put them in jail, but we're not going to spank them. We're not going to cane them like in Singapore. They don't get a spanking at all. But if might is right and violence is okay, you believe in corporal punishment because you need to correct the kid, well then you need to correct the adults too. The adults need some corrected. So if I go to a cop and I say, hey, cop, and I bend the cop over my knee, and I'm sitting there saying, you know, don't you sit there and brutalize people. Don't you have excessive violence. You bad boy. How dare you, bad boy. You need to start protecting and serving. You got to protect and you got to serve everybody. You can't just sit there and pick the people that you want to protect and serve. Everybody has to follow the law. So stop being an asshole. Stop fucking with people for petty shit. Start giving a shit about others and stop killing people. Be a good boy. You're disappointing me. If I did that to a police officer, what would happen? And you shrug your shoulders, you say, so what? Well, that means you think that the police officers are protecting you. I do not have any, such illusions. Maybe I could count the good incidents with police on one hand. The times I needed the police, they shrugged their shoulders and they wrote a fake little report and nothing happened. So, okay, I just got, there's a home invasion, there's a violent person in Pueblo. The Pueblo is so bad. The guy was sitting there beating the crap out of this woman. Beating the crap out of her. And then he started breaking property, he was stealing, and I told the police officers what happened, and they just didn't give a shit. It was my, next door neighbor. And then when the police left, he kept fucking with me. What the hell am I supposed to do? Just accept this shit? Just supposed to accept that you all don't give a shit. He was out, I called the dispatch the third time when he was menacing, standing out in the yard, just sitting there staring at me. He was menacing. If I was at the outside the yard of the dispatcher, and I was menacing her, you think somebody would have gave a shit? You're goddamn right. So your dispatchers are being protected, right? You're only protecting some of the people, and you're not protecting everybody. The only good thing I can say about the police is at least we got some peace and we got order, but they just go too damn far. They go too damn far. We need to have restorative justice. We need to have community policing. We need to actually have, concern and love for one another. Get to know who these people are, so then when something goes down, you're not just like, no, I don't believe you, I don't believe you, I don't believe none of you all. Oh, wait, there's a beautiful woman over there? Oh, I believe you. No, I believe everything you say. So, there's a lot of issues that's going on, and you're ignoring every single one of them. If I did that to the police, I assaulted him, and I hit him over and over again, I would get murdered. I would get killed. No questions asked. But if that police officer, go back 30 years, and it's a little boy, and I'm spanking him because he was doing all those things, using violence and just hurting people, bullying people, people would call me a hero. People would act like that's the greatest thing ever. It's an assault. It's an assault. That's, violent crimes add to your sentence by 6 months to a year to 2 years. An assault is serious. You're going to allow violence in the home? You don't see the connection between violence in the home and then violence in the streets. You don't see the connection between violence in Palestine and Somalia and Venezuela and Yemen and Syria and whatever country, where Pakistan, Afghanistan, Niger, whatever, we just keep on invading new countries. You don't even know what the hell's going on, but you're not going to say nothing about it. You're not going to be opposed to it. And then like that Robert Niemöller quote, who's going to fight for you? They came after the trade unionists, nobody spoke for them. And then they came after the communists, nobody spoke for them. Then they came after the Jews, nobody spoke up for them. And then they came after you. And then there was nobody else left to speak up. So I got some more things that I want to say about it. I want to compare and contrast. The guy that talked to me that kind of got me a little riled up, it's just so frustrating. People are so frustrating. He's like, oh, another shooting's happening. We're not even going to talk about it. You want gun control. You want gun control. You don't care about the poverty. You don't care about the child abuse. You don't care about the shit that these kids are having to go through. You're not going to bake a blueberry pie. You're not going to help them out. You're not going to, get democracy in the schools. You're not going to empower them with, freedom and independence and civics. You're not going to do any of those things. You're not going to do any of those things. You're just going to sit on your ass and say, well, the politicians should pass a law. Yeah, because all Americans read every single law. There's so many laws in, all over the place. Colorado, Kentucky, there's so many laws. I guarantee you, not only does the average citizen not read the laws and not know what the hell is going on, but the police and the prosecutors and the judges, they're not reading every law either. I guarantee I could find laws that they wouldn't even know about. So, yeah, the laws could fix society, help with morality, integration, right? There's some examples, laws helping out. The Constitution is, one big legal document. But the society is sick. American society is sick. And you want to know why stupid shit like this happens? Because American society is sick. And, you know, people, they're just, you know, putting, what do they call that when they're just acting like they're good? Something about moral projecting or some shit. So, more coming up.